Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come on in, family. Come on in. You are in for a treat tonight. Welcome back to another episode of Sane and Save. Together, we are going to survive this coronavirus pandemic. But tonight, we are in for a treat with a very special edition of Sane and Saved. We're talking about surviving back to school. I know so many of folks that I know are educators, but if you're not an educator, you a parent, or you know a parent, or you a grandparent, or you a auntie, uncle, or you know some children. I mean, just period. That's enough. And right now, we're in the throes of returning back to school, and it's a lot to survive. It's a lot to survive. Well, you'll notice that I am missing my other half, my co-host. Well, I gave him the night off, y'all. Sometimes brothers just need a night off. So please excuse his absence this evening. Randall F. Tucker Sr. is not with us this evening, but do not fret. We'll still talk about how to keep ourselves sane, and we'll definitely talk about some of that spiritual stuff that goes along with the work that we have to do. So if you are new to this show and you're just scrolling on Facebook or you're scrolling on YouTube and you came across this, let me just explain to you what you just stepped into. My name is Dr. Shana D. Lewis, but all my friends call me Dr. Shana. I am a licensed professional counselor. I'm a motivational speaker. I'm an educator, a professor. I am an advocate. Y'all, you know me. I am merely just a servant, and I am here serving in one of the greatest capacities that I love, and that is doing Facebook Live, sharing with the community, talking about things that matter to you in your world, and I am here to do just that this evening. Typically, Randall F. Tucker is with me. He is my co-host, but like I said earlier, we had to let the brother off tonight. So I have another guest that's going to join me today that I'm looking forward to you talking to. She's my girlfriends, colleagues, one of those folks who, when you got something you got to talk about, hey girl, she's one of those. But she's also an educational psychologist. So she is precisely in a position to have this conversation. So as you come in the room, y'all just say hello. Hey, Rochelle. Hey, Tammy. Hey, Vaughn. Hey, Gwen. Thank y'all for joining this evening. Do me a favor. Hit share on your timeline. Somebody in your world needs to hear this conversation. They are about to send their kids back to school, or maybe they already have, and they're struggling trying to figure out, how am I going to make it, y'all? It is rough. I do know that some school districts are already in, and some of us, I'm HISD, my kids, and we don't go back until the beginning of September. So it's a lot going on. So we're going to talk about all of that tonight. So just know as we go, this is a interactive show. If you have questions, please drop them in the comment box. We will make sure to answer your questions. If you have comments, because maybe you're an educator, talk to us about how things are going with you right now. We also want to hear from you. So well, without further ado, let me bring in my guest tonight. Let me share with you her bio so you know who she is and why she is exactly positioned to be here with us tonight. So allow me to introduce to you Dr. Rochelle Whitaker is an educational psychologist, parent educator, and author. She is devoted to educating, equipping, and empowering parents, specifically moms. She is an engaging and interactive speaker, combining both her knowledge and personal experience. Dr. Whitaker has worked in the educational field for the last 20 years. That means she's been here a while, y'all. She's not talking about what she heard. She's going to tell y'all what she knows. She worked in the field of special education as a department chair and resource teacher. She also has provided countless assessments to children with disabilities. She has provided numerous trainings from social emotional behavior to parent advocacy. She has a private practice, Providential Counseling, where she specializes in maternal mental health in women of color. Dr. Whitaker has spoken in various media outlets such as radio, podcasts, webinars, panel discussions, conferences on topics of education and maternal mental health. Her primary goal is to help moms advocate for themselves and their children in medical and educational settings. Dr. Whitaker earned her doctoral degree from Texas Tech University in educational psychology with an emphasis in school psychology. She completed a fellowship in autism and neurodevelopmental disabilities from UT Bibs and Breakdowns, a 90-day journal for moms, which is designed to assist moms in managing their emotions after birth and encouraging them to take care of their mental health. So, as I said, I was going to tell y'all why she was qualified to be here. Allow me to introduce you to my friend, and you may have seen me with her somewhere if you follow me, Dr. Rochelle Whitaker. Here she comes. I like to call her Dr. Shell, but her official name is Dr. Rochelle Whitaker. How you doing tonight, Dr. Whitaker?
I'm good. Thank you, Dr. Lewis. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm happy to have you this evening. We got the family here tonight. They're saying hello, Dr. Lewis. Now, Lucy Willis, Brother Tucker is not here. You may have popped in a few minutes late. I gave him the night off. It's just the girls tonight, but we're going to take care of you. Make sure you have a good conversation and you walk away feeling like you got what you came for. Daryl Hurd, Larry Oliver, Pat Palms, thank you guys for being here this evening. Now, Dr. Whitaker, this is a conversation that is so timely. Like, we have got to have the conversation. And you've been in the school district forever. But just before we even get into the specifics of what parents can do or educators can do, let's just talk about where we are in the state of schools, period. Some schools have returned, some haven't. Some schools are doing it one way, some schools are doing it another way. What are you seeing from your, vantage point of being the educational psychologist? What are you seeing, and what do you think about what all is going on in schools these days?
Well, one, I think it's kind of mayhem because even in our city, schools are starting at different times, and I'm just like, why? I think that it just makes it chaotic because you have parents who have, are operating on one school schedule and parents who are operating on another one. I just think it makes everything confusing, even because most of the school districts are virtual, but some aren't. Yeah. I just think everybody should be on one accord. I really think it's crazy. Like, the school district that we are zoned to, the teachers have already gone back to work. And the option is for students to come back. Like, they still have the choice, where other districts, it's all virtual. And I'm just like, this is crazy because the numbers in Houston are so high. So why is any school district open right now? I just think it's crazy.
Crazy. If there was another word that was greater than crazy, I think we have to coin that tonight. Crazy, cray. I don't know. That's not a clinical term, but I feel like that's where we are. It is absolutely, it's insane, right? Yes. To even wrap our minds around. And so, even looking at other parts of the country where schools have gone back, maybe a couple of weeks ago, they've already been out day one with cases and having to shut down and having to quarantine and having to do all of these things. And understandably, all of that's necessary when there's something that happens. But just the idea that that's what we're going to be dealing with here is really overwhelming to even absorb. Because school period was stressful, right? For kids, for parents getting ready to go. And now we have to deal with this. So it's a lot. So I would like for parents who are, somebody asked a great question. What about colleges? They're doing the same kind of thing, I think. I've heard that a lot of colleges are allowing students to come back on campus, depending on the university. What have you seen with the college and university systems?
So I have a cousin who goes to UT, and so she has the option to do virtual classes, and they're trying to social distance. So she would go back. She wouldn't go to class, except for one class. She has a lab, but they are having classes all the way till 8:00 at night, so they can decrease the number of students in each class. So yes.
What?
Yes.
Did you say 8:00 at night? These kids are in class?
8:00. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay, so that is to social distance, so the kids are not all on top of each other in class.
Right, because UT classes are huge, so to spread them out. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Happening is a lot of flexibility, a lot of there's just a lot of moving parts. Like, nothing looks the same. Everything looks different. So figuring out how does this all play out well is going to be a great question, right? I know these are great ideas and we're hopeful. I just don't know how all it works out. And not even I mean, the students, the professors, the educators, the administrators, it's so many levels of people that are involved in this
Mhm.
stuff. Okay. How many folks here who are watching are already are educators, are administrators, are working in the school district? Let us know. Have you returned back to school? What has been your experience so far? I know here, I think Humble has already returned back to school
Mhm.
online, and I think they're letting some kids come in. I think I heard there may be a lot of private schools that have already gone back as well too. That have started earlier. I think Conroe maybe has gone back. So if you're in one of those districts that's already returned, just let us know what has your experience been, because I'm really curious to know what it's like when you're actually there, right? These are theories that we're hearing, but I want to know from the folks like our first responders who are out there on the ground getting
Right.
this stuff done. What is it like? So one of my greatest concerns, though, Dr. Whitaker, is with the return of school is the emotional and mental health issues that are going to show themselves.
Mhm.
One, because our children are out of sorts. I mean, even though they had to do school this way at the very end of last semester, their thought was this was just for right now. No
Right.
one thought that they didn't think they'd have to return back to school in an online setting, like many of them are doing right now. So then you deal with that great disappointment. There's still the social separation from their peers. So there's social emotional issues that we have. I'm just really concerned about the emotional well-being of our children, as well as the educators who are teaching them, because they may have children themselves. They have their own stressors at home. And I'm concerned about the parents, some of who have to go to work. So your kid is at home, maybe alone, trying to go to school. You have to go to work. So there are so many layers of emotional stuff. We talk about trying to stay sane. We're trying to keep everybody sane at the same time. So, I mean, so I don't even know which group to start with. So, well, let's start with the kids first. Let's talk about the children, because they are the whole reason why we're having the conversation. We want them to be successful. What are some of the concerns, or what are some of the things that you think as parents or even as educators we need to be concerned about our children right now returning to school in this kind of world and environment?
So one of the things that has not been discussed is the American Academy for Pediatrics was saying they thought it was better for kids to go back to school due to their uh, emotional mental health well-being. But what they didn't
Mm-hmm.
consider is that kids are going back to school in a setting, in an environment that is not the same. They're having to wear masks.
Mm-hmm.
They can't play
Mm-hmm.
with their classmates. They're still going to be socially isolated. I mean, they can wave,
Yep.
but they can't, contact. They're not going to do PE. Their teachers are not
Right.
going to pat them on the back like they were, or rub them down, or give them a hug. None of that kind of uh, contact will be happening. And so teachers are going to have on masks. And so I just don't think that enough discussion has happened around what that is going to be like for kids. What this experience is going to be like for them walking into a school where you have to be 6 feet between your classmate or your teacher, or walking in the building, or taking turns, like sitting. I don't even know if some kids, they're talking about not even eating in the cafeteria, you're eating in your classroom. So think about that mental and emotional experience for kids. I personally think, if a parent has the option, it's just better to be at home. You don't have to wear a mask all day, because for younger kids, that's
Mm-hmm.
hard. For adults, is hard. So I just don't think that we really consider what that experience would be like for kids going into a school setting that is so different from what they've experienced before.
Exactly. And Rochelle Jacobs, she teaches PE at Everest Academy Private School. She says some teachers have been teaching virtually from on campus, some are teaching virtually from home. And she says so far it's harder for the PK. And what are DK kids? What's DK?
So I
I
get
don't know
pre-K.
what DK is. I got pre-K, but you got to tell me what DK stands. That's a new grade. I didn't know about DK. Especially parents who have to be there to monitor them. Right. It's definitely difficult for them. Gwen also teaches in the school. She's in Conroe. It's been very stressful. Everything is written in sand. Listen, it's written in sand, not in stone. That means it can move at any moment. Right. Things change almost every day. Not every aspect is thought out and left up for interpretation. I feel like we're just building a plane as we fly. Definitely. All right, Rochelle, did you tell me what DK is? Because I don't know who the DK kids are. I'm sure that's important to
Oh,
know. Oh,
no.
developmental kinder. Got you. Okay. So, okay. So talk about that though. The differences in age, because that's a good point. Because you have kids, obviously, from pre-K all the way to 12th grade that are impacted this way. What are some of the developmental issues that we may need to be concerned or thinking about that a younger kid might have that the older kids don't, or vice versa? What does that look like?
So for younger kids, you have to think about them being required to wear a mask all day. And what that means for them, they can't read facial expressions. They can't determine if the teacher is happy or sad or upset with them. Whereas older kids they can do better, right? They don't necessarily have to. They can tell by your tone. They're able um, to tell, what you're feeling and thinking just by your tone. But with younger kids, they need to be able to see your face. They need to be able to know what put the two things together. Plus they're learning social emotional they're learning about expression and what it means to be upset, or what it means to be happy, or what it means to be sad. And how can they do that just looking at your eyes? That's difficult. It's difficult for adults. And people are talking about being able to smile through the mask. Well, if you're 3, I don't know what that looks like. I don't even know what it looks like as an adult.
I
My
can't see you smiling through a mask. I can't feel you smiling through a mask. And again, that is something that they miss. So they'll miss the cues of what happens in a classroom with the teachers being able to show them through their facial expressions. This is what's happening. You're doing a good job. Way to go, or whatever the case might be. Gotcha. So the little kids are going to lose that physical connection that they need, right, in order to know what's happening. What about the older kids? What are they going to be missing that we may not even thought about?
So I think too, for them too, some of that social piece where they are used to, like, hugging their friends, or giving each other like a high five, or even just being in close proximity to each other. I think that the older kids will miss out on that, because when you get to that middle school age is a tough age, and so they usually don't have any idea about boundary issues. So I have concern about that. I've seen kids, middle school age kids, in the grocery store, and they don't even their mask is on, but it's not on their face. It's like down here. It's like where they're it's pulled down, and they're in the store with their family. And so I see a mom or a dad telling their middle school child, like, pull up your mask, or put it back on. And so I can only imagine what that's going to be like at school. Those kids not going to have on any mask.
And that's exactly what I said. If the grown-ups can't get right, how do we expect the children to sit at school all day and follow that instruction and cover up all day? They're going to say, I'm hot, I can't breathe, I can't talk to my friend. It's just me and so, like we besties, so it's not a problem. They're not going to cooperate. And you know what? You can't even blame them for not wanting to cooperate. I can't even be mad at them. So it's going to be an amazing emotional struggle. One of the things that I was thinking about too, and I was having this conversation with some other parents, is children are going to be, they're going to have a loss in their educational gains over this year because of the way that it's delivered. I mean, the best job that districts are trying to do, and even parents who are going to be staying at home with their kids, is still going to look different than what they've had before. In some cases, some kids make them out better. I don't know. But there will be cases where a lot of kids are going to come out where there's going to be a shortage. But one of the things I thought about is all kids will have the same shortage because they've all been in the same circumstance. So when school starts back, we go back to whatever regular life or new life looks like. In my head, my thought is they'll all be returning back at the same space, right? We all lost the same year, and we'll all start back. Does that make sense educationally, or is that going to be a greater issue because of the losses that they may have in this year?
So I don't think that all kids will start the next year in the same spot, because it's going to depend on opportunities and resources, right? Because even for it really just depends. If you have parents who are able to be home with you while there's virtual teaching and they're able to go back over things with you, I think it's going to look very different than maybe the child who is home by themselves having to navigate virtual, or the mom is working most of the time, or mom, dad, parent, whoever is working most of the time, and they have very
Mm-hmm.
little time to devote to their child. I think it's going to look different. And I think a lot of it's going to have to depend on like what parents are willing and able to do. So some parents may make learning a priority for their child, even in this pandemic and the new situation. And so I think those kids might thrive. Whereas other parents who are just, they have to do what they have to do, and maybe they just have to let
Yeah,
the school go, they'll come out, maybe very differently. So a lot of it is
that's
just going
true.
to really dependent, I think, on parents and also on kids, right? I'm not expecting an 8-year-old to be able to sit and sustain from 8 to 4, hopping on and hopping
Mm-hmm.
off. It's going to be some things lost. But if a parent or somebody else is coming in to make up the difference, I think that's going to look very different than another child who doesn't have any support. So,
Got you. So that's a good point. So the level of resources, the opportunities, and the supports that they have will absolutely make a difference on how they end up at the end of this. That
mm-hmm.
makes sense. That makes sense. So, okay, so let me ask you this question. What kinds of opportunities would put a child in a best position to have gains in during this time? Like, so as a parent, I'm sitting here thinking, like, what opportunities do I need, or if I have the capacity to create for my child, what might they look like in order for me to support them?
So getting an idea of what you have kids in public school. So if you have a child that's going to 5th grade or 6th grade or whatever grade, go on the TEKS website and download it and see what things that they need to master for this year, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then you can go and reinforce those things as you have time, or go back over those things with your kids to make sure they have it. You can get workbooks, you can pull out worksheets and resources
Mm-hmm.
to reinforce those concepts. So I would say if you have a child and you're like, okay, this year is going to look different, I don't have a lot of time, or
Mm-hmm.
in the time that I do have, I want to make sure they're getting what they need, go download the TEKS. I mean, you can just Google it. And for the grade
Okay.
level that they're on, make sure they have those concepts.
Okay. So as a parent, understanding what their educational aims or goals actually are. Because I mean, unless we look up the TEKS, how are we going to know what they need to be mastering at all?
Right.
Perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking too that maybe if there's opportunity to have a tutor, perhaps in addition to what the parent is doing. I do know that there are some programs that are offering free or low cost tutoring to kids. And I can't remember where I saw that. I have to go back. It was on Facebook. There was an organization that was offering that. But it's something that's an opportunity, right? That's a resource that kids could have that would help fill a gap possibly that they may be experiencing. Let's see
And
what our
so
folks are saying here. Go
that
ahead.
kind of goes back to what you were saying as far as like what's going to be the difference. So I know parents who have already started getting tutors for their kids, and that's because they have
Okay.
they have that the ability to do that, whereas other parents don't necessarily have that ability. So their kids, may do okay. Or for
Right.
the parents who can afford to send their kids to those virtual, have you seen the kind of virtual daycares where they're like $200
Mm-hmm.
a week, or um, and so you send your child there and the person at the place will help your child get on and do their schoolwork, and they'll keep them all day and provide lunch. So
Oh, so okay, I hadn't heard of that. So it's a daycare for big kids, right? Who need to be on
right.
the computer because their parents had to go to work.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I love that. I mean, because there are going to be parents who are going to absolutely need that as a resource.
Right.
Absolutely, are going to need that as a resource. Again, everything about this time is going to look different for sure, for sure, for sure, for sure. Um, let's see. Deborah, hey Deborah, she works in Fort Bend. She says our superintendent told all of the special education teachers, paraprofessionals have to come in and work face to face with some of the SPED students whose parents want them to come face to face. She's not feeling safe going face to face while we're all still in the red zone in Fort Bend. That's a concern. We can talk about that as well too. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Another resource, Rochelle says parents can also have students take previous year's STAR tests. Okay, that's a good opportunity because those entire tests are available on the website that you can download and give to your kids. I've done that for mine. My mom have done that as well. Okay, So we need to make sure for our kiddos that we're considering resources, opportunities that we can present them with to help them excel as much as they can. We understand that our kids are going to have some emotional concern. I was talking to a parent today that described that she didn't realize how much her child was emotionally upset about the state of school until the child had a meltdown. Are you okay? No, I'm not okay. I
Right.
don't like this. I don't want to be sitting on the computer going to class. I'd rather be in school. So that, who knows? For those who haven't begun school yet, we may be faced with those things and not really considering that the kids have feelings. Sometimes grown ups like they're just kids. No, they're people. They feel just like we do. We can't ignore that. And so how would you say as parents and even as the educators who are working with our children, virtually or in person, depending on the situation, how should we respond to their emotional well-being?
So as parents, I would say, definitely, check in with your child every so often. Ask them, talk to them about how they're feeling, what's going on in the world. I mean, on their developmental level, but talk to them, ask them questions, ask them how they feel, ask them what you can do to make, if there's something you can do to make it better. So maybe it's not that you can't change the situation, but maybe if you put them on Zoom or you have a social distance meetup or something that'll help them they may not be able to tell you a lot, but they can tell you, I'm missing my friends. And so as a parent, you can get creative in how you can help them, and help them to foster that kind of, issue with, not having friends. And then as educators, I know that with my kids last year, they didn't have time to interact with each other. I mean, they were all in a virtual classroom, and that was something that they had decided to do this year, was give time for the kids to interact, like, make a space or a zone virtually for the kids to interact, which I think is important, right? Because that's a huge portion of their whole school learning experience is interacting with their peers. So, as educators, just thinking, well, what can I do? Okay, we'll spend 15 minutes and I'll let you all talk to each other, or we'll play a game or something to make it interactive and fun.
So that they can at least engage somewhat, albeit not normal, but some kind of engagement that's not just we're here learning. Yeah, that would be a preferred way for them to at least communicate at school, right? Again, it just feels odd and different. All right, so let's talk about the educators. Deborah brought up the point that she works for Fort Bend. She's being asked to come back. She doesn't feel safe or comfortable doing that. What are the things that our educators, administrators, what are we up against? I mean, I say we as if I'm one. What are they up against?
So I think for teachers, it's going to be very different because they're fearful, right? So they may be anxious, they may be worried. I ran into a teacher this weekend in the store, and she's a SPED teacher, and so she had some of the same concerns that Deborah posed. Like, I don't want to go back. So I said, oh, she taught in an autism. Her students were autistic, and so I was like, oh, you have a small classroom, right? And she said, well, I started off with 8, now I have 18. I said, well, all 18 aren't coming back, and she said, all but 2. All but 2 aren't coming back. That's 16 kids in a classroom.
16. That's a lot of kids.
And so she was, anxious, and she's like, I don't know how this is gonna go. I don't want to go back. And so I think it's going to be really important to provide schools to provide something for the teachers to reduce anxiety. And then to give them some option or some choice, because I feel like it's almost saying, like, you're a teacher, this is your job, so just deal with it. And that's not fair. It's just not fair. And so you've had a lot of teachers to retire or to flat out.
Well, just quit. Right. I've seen that too. I'm not doing this. I'm out. And you know what? You can't even be mad at them. You can't blame them. I just think it's sad that they had to feel like they were forced into a position that I had to possibly quit before I was ready, quit before, it was my time, if you will. But they had to make a choice that made sense for them and theirs, as opposed to the greater, educational system, right? And that's just so sad. I think that's so sad. So, so you got teachers going back to school anxious, extremely worried, preoccupied because they're worried about what's happening. Some may even feel depressed because I'm in a place and I really don't want to be here. And and not for nothing, and we're having this conversation so we can be candid and real about what actually is happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can paint all of these pictures about this is a wonderful plan, and I'm not a pessimist, y'all know that about me, but I want to be a realist to provide solutions and options to things that maybe we hadn't really considered. And so you got educators who are struggling. And so what is it that an educator needs to do? So Deborah has to go back, right? If she decides to, you always have a choice, y'all. Options are always available to you. Some of them are not attractive. Some of them we don't like. But you always have an option. So if you choose to go back under the circumstances that you're going back to, even though you really, it's not your preferred setting or setup, what can they do? I mean, you get up every morning concerned. I'm showing up in this space. What can an educator do? Because one of the things I know is that when you are in a highly activating emotional situation repeatedly, it's difficult to come back from that. If it was a one and done, we can process that, we can figure that out, we can, put a whole bunch of coping mechanisms on it, but you're doing it every day. So what can we offer them, the educators who are going and really are concerned for themselves?
So I would say, one of the things to decrease anxiety is to be prepared, right? And part of being prepared is to be PPE'd up, right? To have on all your protective gear.
Yeah.
They have these new, teachers have these, I've seen these like bubbles where they're wearing these, it's kind of like a square, and it's got like plastic. And so you're encased from like almost like the right under the breastbone up. And so,
Okay.
PPE'd up. There is an app that has worked wonderfully for the nurses in New York. And I think that
Okay.
attest to work for teachers too. It's called Sanvello, SANVELLO. And so a lot of
spell it again for me, Dr. Whitaker.
SANVELLO.
Okay. All right.
And so a lot of the nurses were saying, because they were seeing death like in high numbers, they put this app on, and it just just told them positive things, and there was like reassuring messages, and so they use this to make it through. And so I've given that to some of my clients as well, and they said it has helped them tremendously. So teachers may not be able to use it while they're teaching, but they can put it on before, while they're getting ready for work, when they have lunch, when they have breaks, and then after work, and then finding a therapist, using your EAP, employee assistance program. Find a therapist to talk to kind of just have somebody to help you to kind of deal with that anxiety, deal with that kind of fear, or just to talk through what you're experiencing.
Right. Because what you don't want to do is suffer inside of this alone. And I think that's the worst thing anyone can do, especially when you're in a highly stressful situation. And we talk about stress often because stress is not good for our bodies, it's not good for our minds. And what we're saying is, stress isn't good, but y'all go be stressed daily. Like go do, that's what you're asked to do every day. And it's deep. So that site that you talked about, Sanvello, what exactly is it? It's sounds, it's activities, it's music.
I don't know about music, but it's meditation, it's sound, it's messages. Oh, you know what? And I left off the most important thing. Stay prayed up. Stay prayed up.
Yeah, we're going to get to that, because you can't be sane and not be saved and prayed up on the other side. It is not even possible, because they go together. They absolutely go together. When all else fails, you just got to go to the one who can fix it, because we're in a position where, as humans, we are very limited in what we can do in many of these situations to affect change at all, especially when you're talking about someone who needs to make a living, and this is the job you've been doing for X amount of years, and this is what you know to do, what you love to do. Now you're called to go and work in this way. It's a lot, but if we're not prayed up, we've made a mistake. All right, we have some questions over here. Let's see. Rochelle asked, here, I'm gonna pop this on the screen. Let me see if I if we can see it. Let me remove our names. Rochelle says, is TEA SPED giving any guidance to teachers or offering options on how students can safely receive SPED services? Have you heard anything about that?
Other than them sending SPED students back to school. So the multi-impaired or the autistic students, the life skill students, from what I understand, all of those students are going back on campus. And I guess for the ones that are staying at home, they're presenting them with the virtual option, which I don't really know how that works. For some students that maybe are autistic, it might just work fine. I've heard students that have ADHD, virtual has been greater than, going to school.
Being
So
in class. Okay.
it's different. So, but I do know for a number of school districts, SPED students are going back on campus.
Got you. Gwen has a question. Gwen is in a school district as well. She says, how can we remain positive in this toxic environment? How do we remain positive in a toxic environment?
And so kind of like what we were just talking about, stay prayed up. Um, talk to find a therapist, or even if you don't, have a therapist, finding someone that you can talk to, somebody that can support you, somebody that can hear you out, and somebody that can give you some positive word. And meditation helps. I think exercise helps. It's kind of more preventative than it is in the actual, but I think it helps to release stress. And so, getting up in the early hours in the morning before you even have to go to work, putting on some music that helps to calm you down, doing some stretching or some exercises just to kind of get your mind and your body in a good space. And then, ran all the way to work and all the time you're there.
Right? Pray without ceasing. Y'all know that's a good word. Pray without ceasing. In the midst of the coronavirus, in the midst of returning to work, in the midst of the coronavirus, without ceasing. And one of the things that I say often when folks say, I'm going to a place that's really toxic, I always say, take with you that which you need. Like, I never want to walk in a room and expect the room to provide me with what I need emotionally. I need to show up with what I need when I get there. So if I need positivity, I need to bring positive with me. If I need spirit, I need to have spirited up on the way to work when I show up there. If I need some relaxation, some meditation, I need to have done that before I showed up there. So my encouragement is to our educators to show up geared up with what you need for your day emotionally. Do not expect or look for those around you to give it to you, because half of the time they can't, because they anxious themselves. Right. Like it's like they may not be able to provide you much in that space. Be very careful of who you let in your ear, because if there's a lot of negative people always complaining, guess where that's going to put you in a headspace? Always negative. So you want to make sure that you're finding a space of, and I always say balance is a unicorn. We're not going to find her, but integrating, what are the facts? We got them. And we can focus on the deficits here, or we can look for the solutions in the positive space, build from the strengths, what's available to us. And we typically feel better when we build versus when we focus on what we don't have. So things to think about. So here, this is some information. Patricia says SPED students are going to Fort Bend's Learning Center. So they're actually not sending them back to the regular campuses. I guess they're sending them into a learning environment that maybe looks different than the actual school itself. So maybe that helps. I mean, I think we need to be in a position of trying to maybe even help offer some solutions at our individual campus. I keep saying our like I'm a teacher, but I feel like I'm amongst the village, right? Because my kids are going to be taught by somebody's teacher who I don't even know yet, and I need her to be okay when she show up on the camera. I want her to be good. So let's move to the parents. Okay, so we talked about the kids, we talked about the educators and those who are in the schools and administrators. What can our parents do? So we're at home, like we're first responders for real. And folks are like, well, I don't want to be a teacher. Granted, none of us, well, some of y'all did go to school to be teachers. I didn't. I was probably a sub for a hot minute because I was like, oh, no, I don't want to be here. It's too many of these children. No. But that didn't work for me. But when it's your kid, at the end of the day, we are responsible for them, right? When you had them, you took on that responsibility of all the things for them. Here we are. Like it or not, we're here. So, what are some of the things, and those of you who are parents on here whose children have already returned to school and you have some perspective, share with us what that's been like for you. Because mine haven't gone back, so I don't know what that's like. And I don't know, Dr. Whitaker, have you started school with your kids yet?
No, it's the end of the month.
Okay. Okay, so we don't know because we haven't done it yet. So if you are a parent and you have a child is already going back to school, tell us what that's been like for you as a parent. What your emotional struggles are. What part of this might be difficult for you that you may need some help with because we want to help you. So what would you say, Dr. Whitaker? What are some of the things our parents are need to be thinking about considering right now in the midst of this time?
So I know that some parents are vacillating about what to do. And I just read an article about
Yeah.
Dr. Sanjay Gupta, and they interviewed him and asked him because he just said that he was not going to be sending his kids back to school. And some of the things that he considered was, he went to the school and asked them, okay, what does social distancing look like? What kind of things are you putting in place? Are you requiring the kids to wear a mask, or are you just saying that you're requiring them to wear a mask? Are you really going to implement this with fidelity, or are you just doing this to show face? Those things were really of concern to him, and he really wanted to see what they were going to do. And so based on the fact that, I guess, on some of the responses that they gave, but also he said that the numbers in Georgia are high, and that's where he lives. He was like, why would I send my kids back to school right now when we had less cases in March? It was 5,000 cases in the United States in March, and the schools shut down. Well, now there are 5 million people infected with the virus, and those are in southern state. The majority of the numbers of increase are in southern states. So he was like, why would I send my kids back to school now with 5 million cases when it was 5,000 not in the United States, and we shut everything down and said no. So I think for parents, you have to really consider where you are. So right now the cases are going up, and they're going up, and they're going up. And ideally the cases should be below, I believe, 1%. There should be 14 days where there are no cases. And so that's not the case here. So if you have an option to consider not sending your kids, think about that. Think about the numbers. Think about what the school is doing. Maybe you want to go talk with your school administrators. And then on the other side, if you are going to have your kids at home, create a space. Get creative and have them get involved in creating the space, whether it's a corner in their room, a corner at your dining room table. Have them make it their own, and have them get excited about it. And so, those are, I could go on, but yeah, those are some things to think about.
There's a lot to be said. I love that. Help the kids create a special place is definitely important, because the ones that have to sit and do that work, right? I love that's an amazing idea. Vera Fletcher said, pray in the morning, pray in the evening, pray in the noontime, pray all the time. It helps her cope, and try so very hard to talk to someone who lifts her up. She also talks about walking from 30 to 60 minutes a day. It's her meditation time to read a portion of God's word as you start your day. Rochelle says, as a parent, what helped me with my son was, this is a good one too, was being very organized. He had all his learnings, computer charged up. I created a scanned file folder for all of his work. So if you, as a parent, make sure that the kid is organized, it's going to be less stress for you and for the kid if things are there, right? And so what Vera talked about was taking care of herself first, before you're able to administer to someone else. Yeah, very good. Very good. Creating that workspace. I know one of the things that you also have done and you've created for parents is some quick tips about things that they can think about and do right now. Can you share a few of those with us right now? And I also want to, while you're sharing them, put on the screen where folks can actually find um, that tip sheet.
Sure. So, top thing on the list is create a space. I just talked about that. Part of that too is creating a schedule. So it kind of depends on if your kids are going by the public school schedule, you may not have a lot of ability to kind of vary. But if you're homeschooling, or even if you have kids in school by the school schedule, there may be some times where you have to um, do your own thing, right? I mean, they have to
Mhm.
be in school, but they need breaks. So, instituting breaks. If you start to see them kind of getting worn down, instituting
Mhm.
breaks. If you're creating your schedule, you can put those in there if you're homeschooling. But if you're going by the school schedule, your brain will only attend for 50 minutes to one thing. And so you're gonna
Mhm.
need your kids 10 minutes. And I'm saying adults can only attend to something for 50 minutes. That's what the research says. So if adults can only attend 50 minutes, how how much can your child attend to? And I think
Mhm.
from some HIC educators, I've heard that there's like 20, they'll be presenting or doing 20 to 30 minutes, which is optimal. But even instituting some breaks. So creating a schedule. And if your kids are going to be at home, preparing snacks and lunch ahead of time. Maybe they want to prepare their lunch or snacks, but kind of easy grab and go
Oh,
kind of thing. And that way it goes back to
now
being
that's a
organized.
good
You don't have
idea.
to be concerned.
Yeah. Mhm.
You don't have to be, worried about, oh my gosh, what are we going to do for lunch? That becomes another job for you and you just get stressed. So, thinking about that ahead of time, like you going to school, creating lunch, like you going to school, create snacks, and that's going to decrease your grocery bill too, because, kids are at home and they think they could just eat and go.
All day. Listen, it wears me out. What we gonna eat? What we go eat? What we
Mhm.
go eat? Like is that is on repeat and replay all day long. Didn't we just eat? Like I'm like I feel like I just fed you, but apparently I didn't. And you acting like you got to eat every 4 hours, like you were infant. You're not. You big kids. You're not starving. I'm not buying that. That wears me out. But I love preparing the snacks that they can eat throughout the day instead of coming and asking you multiple times for things or having to leave and you being stressed out. They're trying to figure out what to eat. That's a great, great tip. I love that. What's the site that they can find the tips that you're sharing with us right now, Dr. Whitaker?
It's back to school countdown.info.
Okay. I'm going to put it on the screen so everybody can find that. Okay. Back to school
And
countdown.
something else that I don't think
I
that,
get that
I
right.
don't know that adults always think about this either, but plan some outside time for your kids. So for my kids, I get them up in the morning and we go outside. We go for a walk around the block. We go do something in the driveway. We, do bikes around the neighborhood. We do something to get them out of the house because I don't want the walls to close in on them and it's too late, right? So I try to be preventative on that front
Yeah.
because every time you stay in the house, you can get cabin fever and it can drive you insane. So, we try to be preventative and get your
Yeah.
kids out of the house daily.
That's good. So, I'm glad you said that because at home, I have Rochelle on here. You're a PE teacher. What does that look like? Because you're saying just get them outside, get some sun. And the hope is you've been doing that all along, right? Because they've been in the house for the last 6 months. But especially when you need them to be present mentally to attend to a lesson, they need to be alert. They need to be present. They need to be ready to learn. So being able to have some sun, have some, movement and activity is important. Rochelle, speak to that here in the chat. I know you are a PE teacher. What things can parents do possibly to help their kids? I think that's important. We have a comment here, and I think this is very true. Reginald Booker says, during this situation, parents have to be more involved than ever before. What are some of the practices that can be implemented to fully get parents engaged with their kids' educational advancement? I agree. We have to be more involved than ever, 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 ever,
Mhm.
ever. So, what might be some other suggestions to get parents involved in this process?
You know, if you can, I think this is a good idea, because I've heard parents say that they are now finding out that their child doesn't know certain concepts that they thought they had, because the report card is saying, giving them 100 or A, and they're finding out that they can't do
Mm-hmm.
second grade math. So, if you can do some type of an assessment with your child, it's something, basic. But also, if you can talk to your child's teacher from last year to kind of find out, get some information about where they are, what they were struggling with. And then you can kind of close in the gap. So there are workbooks. I know you all have seen the workbooks. They sell them at like different places. You can even get them at the dollar store. So, maybe you have a child in the 5th grade, but they're struggling with some first grade concepts. Go get the first grade workbook. Now, you might have to scratch it out for your child, or tear off the cover, or just tear some of the pages out. Those are some ways that you can like close in the gap. And then if you have a child that's working on the other end, and they're doing, they're in the 5th grade or the 6th grade, and they're doing way beyond what they can do, then maybe you want to get them start on freshman algebra or geometry. Maybe finding them a tutor, or maybe you have a relative that's in college that can help them with this higher order math, or you have a younger child who is gifted in math, and they can help your 5th grader. So really using your resources in your community that you have to help you, with that educational advancement, saying what you need. So, hey, do we have any cousins, or does your daughter do well? We need some help. I
Right.
mean, this is the time.
So
This is
that's
the time.
making it known. Right. So it's not the time to sit in quiet and your kids struggle and you struggle. It's the time to open your mouth and ask for help. Definitely. Rochelle gave some things as far as the activity is concerned, some things
Mhm.
that she does. She says she uses YouTube Kids, Open Sci-Ed,
Busy.
Shape, and oh, phys ed. That child, listen. That's the mama who is not physically inclined. That's it. Oh, because I'm all about psychology. I done put phys ed, shape, and active at home. So those are great websites, parents. Thank you, Rochelle, for those suggestions. She even said this is a good one that is great for kids. Cosmic yoga. That's cool. Look it up. Look it up. Look it up. Look it up. Nikki says, what was that website again? Tell me which one, Nikki. I think we put a few of them up. Tell me which one. You want Dr. Whitaker's website again? I can put that one back up if that's what you're looking for. Okay, so and I know you got several tips on the website. If you want to give them one more tip, because I want to get into some of the spiritual things that parents can think about right now as well too. What would be one other tip that parents can be thinking about right now?
So if you can, I would say familiarize yourself with the online system that they're using, right? Because it can be
Okay.
so cumbersome when you're trying to help your child get on or log in, and you're trying to go here and there.
Mm-hmm.
How the system works, you may not be able to fully access the school system yet. I'm not really sure if they'll allow you to do it beforehand. But if it's Google Classroom, you can, if you have a Google account, you can go and click on Google Classroom and just kind of see the layout of it. Trying to familiarize yourself with where they're going to actually be having class and how to use the system. I think that is of utmost importance.
Because here's the truth. We didn't do that last time. I didn't go look up Teams. What? Well, you know what? I didn't. I had no clue. I had zero clue. I was fortunate though, because my children, they had already used it in school and they were very adept. They didn't even ask me for help because they really knew what they were doing. And so I really counted on them to know what they were doing. If you have a question, then I'll answer. But I agree though, now because we know that we're in this thing and it's extended, as parents, we need to be educated. And I also know HISD, and I would assume every district have some sort of education like this. They're having educational classes for parents to learn how to use the system that our kids are going to be using. And if you aren't familiar with the systems that they're using, you want to make sure you get with the school district to find out how are you teaching the parents what to do, because that's the only way our kids are going to be successful, if we are clear about what's happening, so that we can assist them if we're at home with them. Would you agree with that?
I would. And I would say, if you have younger kids, it's going to be really important for you to get on because, like, you had older kids and they can maneuver. I have
Right,
young kids
right.
and they don't have a they don't have an email address. So I'm having to log in and, so I needed some tutoring myself, and I call myself pretty competent with different things.
Right,
We were on the
right.
struggle bus.
Exactly. Exactly. So if you need to catch more of those tips from Dr. Whitaker, please go to backtoschoolcountdown.info. It's there on the screen for you. If you are just tuning in, I haven't done any commercials. It's been such a great conversation. I forgot to do a commercial to let folks know that you are watching Sane and Save Special Edition, Surviving Back to School. Yes, Randall Webb Tucker is off tonight. You just get the ladies this evening. And we've been talking about how students, how educators and administrators, and how parents can remain sane as we all work together to go back to school. And I really believe it's a collective effort. We all need to work together and make this happen. It's going to be very, very important. So if you want those tips, please go to backtoschoolcountdown.info, and they will be there for you. Now, we talked earlier about the importance of using prayer and using the spiritual piece, because I completely know that if we do not create space for that, we would have made a major, major, major mistake. And I want parents to consider this scripture that we were alluding to earlier, 1 Thessalonians 5. Pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. Here's the thing, family. No matter what we're going through, we must rejoice always. So it doesn't say rejoice when they asked you what you wanted and if they did it the way you liked. That's not what he said. He said rejoice always. So even when you're waking up in the morning and you're thinking to yourself, oh my goodness, here we go, first day of school, what's going to happen? Rejoice always. Pray continually. Listen to the order. And this is what I love about God's word, is because things are ordered purposefully. It's not placed happenstancely. The first piece of this says rejoice always. The second piece says pray, and then it says give thanks. Here's the thing. If we're rejoicing always, if we are absolutely jubilantly excited, because rejoicing means I am excited what's happening. I am not down, sad about it at all. This is a celebration. Why? Because I woke up this morning. If that's all I got to rejoice about today, then I am grateful that we are all still here. We are all still in a capacity to think things through, to make decisions for our family, to get up and go to work if we have a job. If we don't have one, to get up and go find one today. We have so much to rejoice about right now. And then when we rejoice and we're excited and praying continuously, that means without ceasing. There is no reason for us to stop praying. Pray when you wake up. Pray with your children before they start their school days. Make a habit of praying with them so they understand that they're taking God with them into that classroom setting, whether it's online, whether it's in the classroom, the learning center, doesn't matter where it is, but help them to be clear about what they're showing up with. I said earlier, you need to take everything you need with you in your backpack when you show up, and they do too. Give them that. Give them that reassurance and encouragement that they know they're not showing up alone. Maybe this is difficult. Yes. Maybe I don't get to see my friends. Yes. Maybe I don't even understand it. Absolutely. But I know I don't have to do this alone. I'm not by myself. There is nothing that I can't do because I know my parents have given me God in the beginning. And then when we give all the thanksgiving in all circumstances, y'all see all is all. It didn't say only when it's what I asked for, only when it's delivered in the format that I requested, only if I like it, only if it feels good. It says all. Thanksgiving in everything. The thing about and it's interesting because in therapy, we talk about situations where we call them absolutes. When people say all the time, everything, and we call those irrational thoughts. But when it comes to Jesus, none of that is irrational. All of that is rational. When he says rejoice says always, he mean always. When he say continually without ceasing, it's what it means. Give thanks in all circumstances and give thanks in all circumstances. Family, it is right now so imperative. If our children are going to get through this, if our educators are going to get through this, if we're going to make it through this, we have to go back to the basic things that he's taught us from the very beginning. We have to. Now is not the time to get so frustrated and upset that you have forgotten the things that you learned when you were little yourself, when you were in Bible school growing up, the things that you practice when things are great. You need to practice those same things right now. We all have to practice all of those things right now. So I'm encouraging us all, reflect on those things, meditate on these things. When we wake up in the morning, we also need to wake up and meditate on God's word. I don't know. And you tell me, Dr. Whitaker, when you think about the value and the importance of this, because I believe in the mind, body, spirit connection. I just don't believe you get one right without the other ones being right. How pivotal do you think it is for us not just to do this for ourselves, but also for our children so that we all are prepared to do the other things that you described that we need to do in the first place?
Oh, it's vital, right? Your kids thrive. How they handle situations is based on how you handle them. So if you're depressed, then they too will be depressed. If you are anxious, then they too will be anxious. So it's imperative. And just like, we're talking about the word, just like you need some word, put that word in your kids, give them some words so that they have something to stand on right now. They may not understand everything that's going on, but they understand that there is something going on and they can still, pray. They can still be pray without ceasing. They can still rejoice and they can still be thankful. I can't play with my friends. I can't go to school, but I'm getting up every morning, I'm in my right mind. We don't have COVID. And, my grandmother is still here. I mean, there's so many things to be thankful for. So you have to model that for your kids too. Have them praying. Y'all pray together. Everybody pray.
Yeah. You know what? When you said we have to model it for them as well, because they do what we do a lot more than they do what we say.
Right.
So if we show up saying, y'all just don't worry about it, but they listen to you worry all day long and they hear all the negativity come out your mouth, they're going to mimic what you do. So as parents, even as the educators and administrators, you're the adult examples in their lives. They are impressionable and they are sponges. I don't care how old they are. They're going to do what we do a whole lot faster than they do what we say. So I am hopeful that we can grab on to the things that we know that are true, that are always true. God's word has never failed us. It never will at all. And Rochelle, you just said it. Deuteronomy said, look behind, look within, look up, and look again. Let me tell you, I've been doing that since last week. That is a bad study, I tell you. Randall F. Tucker dropped that off. That was so good. If you didn't catch that episode, y'all go backtrack to that one last week. It was fire. It was so good. I just think I know it's important that we include all of these aspects as we work to help ourselves, our students, and our educators have a successful year. Although it looks completely different, and it is nowhere in the world, if you had asked any of us this time last year, will we be in a world where we were virtual schooling, where we were we were PPE'd up in the classroom, folks would have laughed you off. Get out of here. What are you talking about? That'll never happen. But here we are. And in the midst of it, we just need to be rejoicing. We need to pray and we need to be thankful. And we also need to do the work as parents. It requires work. Our kids are not going to function well if we're not putting in the work for them. So I appreciate you, Dr. Whitaker, for joining us tonight for this conversation. Do you have any closing thoughts for our parents at this point? Our time is spent. We've already been here a little bit over an hour. It sure does go fast.
So the only other thing that I want to share with parents is to make sure that just like we get up and we start our day, do the same thing for your kids. Have them get up, put on clothes, even though it's virtual, because you want to create an environment. You want to help them to get their mind ready and prepared. And you want them to treat it as if it is school. And so, that requires you to put on some school clothes or, shirt and some shorts. But I'm saying get out of your pajamas to change your mindset. And so I would just, want to encourage parents to do that. talk to your kids. This is a time where I think more so than ever, talk and pray with your kids. Talk and pray with your kids.
Mhm. That's good. That's very, very good. And you said something right now that just struck me with me. You said get up and get dressed like you're going to school, because you are. And I said to my daughter that we need to go school shopping. Even though school is happening right here, I want her to feel like I'm at school. I got a shirt on, I got a new set of bows or whatever it is. So at least they can get excited about that much.
Yeah.
You can still take the first day of school pictures, because believe me, I am that mama, and I will be having a first day of virtual school photo shoot. Sure will. And I'll be posting. Do not judge me, but I will. So, but I'm saying it's for the experience for them, because we need to make it something that's memorable. It really will be anyway, but that is a positive memory as opposed to a negative one. So, hope this helped you guys. Rochelle says, thank you, dynamic duo. You are very welcome. Thank you, ladies. You've been a blessing. You are welcome. You're very welcome. Share this with somebody on your timeline, a parent, an educator, an administrator, a grandparent who's helping raise or help children. Somebody needs to hear this. This was an excellent, excellent conversation. I enjoyed it so much. I tell y'all, I bring y'all best. I don't bring y'all no junk. I bring y'all the people who know what they talking about. And so I appreciate you guys for taking the time to be here as well. So if you would do me a favor, make sure you come back next Thursday night. There'll be another episode of Sane and Save, surviving this coronavirus pandemic together. Now, to next week, you're gonna get Randall F. Tucker. He'll be off vacation. He'll join us again next Thursday night. And also, if you are in need of the coping workshops that I'm hosting, go to my page. You can go to drshanadlewis.com to register as well. These are free workshops to parents. Anyone, you can be an adult, but a lot of it, there is a portion directed for those who have children. It's a free workshop that's going to give you tools and techniques. So go to Doctors here. I'll put it up here on the screen. Anybody who's interested in attending that workshop, they're only through the month of August, and they're different times. But I'll put the website that you can go to find that. So go ahead and refer one of those and share that with someone else in your world who may be in need of some support. It's a great workshop, and it will be helpful. So let's see, Dr. Shana D. Lewis. I know how to spell my name, I think. All right. It's a great workshop, and it's something that will definitely help you if you're a parent working with your kids. All right, you guys are very welcome. I appreciate you guys for being here. Have an amazing rest of your week. You are welcome, Vera Fletcher. Have an amazing rest of your week. You next week for the next episode of Sane and Save. Together we will survive the coronavirus pandemic. Y'all have a good night.